balancing, balancing enrollment, and balancing demographics. Even so, there are no easy or perfect plans, and that's why we've gathered to get your feedback tonight. We also want to minimize the impact on individual families. With the exception of families who live in the Dice Street neighborhood, who would have an implementation date of August 2027, these changes would not go into effect until August 2029, until current kindergartners would enter fifth grade. For our current kindergartners and their younger siblings, we have outlined some exemptions and options to help families make a plan. I would like to thank my advisory committees. Their thoughtful input has been a key part of this process. We also appreciate all the feedback we have received throughout this process to date, at meetings and emails and via the first survey. In addition to the public comments, you still can submit feedback via the survey posted on our website until March the 12th. As we start this feedback session, please remember to clearly state your name and address, and we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. We are also accepting feedback via Zoom. You can find the registration link on our website. If you are on Zoom, we ask that you turn your camera on while you're presenting your comments. And at this time, I open the floor for comments from the public.
There is a sign-up sheet here so that we can just come up in order. And I believe the first person who signed up is Shauna Danes, I think. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Then I guess at this point, people can just come up. And I think just for record keeping, this isn't an official board meeting. It's a listening session, but for record keeping, it might be good if people sign in. It might be, for record keeping, it might be good if people sign in. This isn't an official board meeting where there's any action taken or the board is following an agenda, but as a listening session, it just might be useful to have a record, especially if you have questions that it might be useful for the staff to follow up on the questions or the feedback.
Hello, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Hand. My family and I live on the 900 block of St. Clair Avenue, so just north of Route 250 bypass. We have a current and a would-be future student at Burnley Moran Elementary School, and we walk 0.5 miles to school with our child daily. And we oppose the current proposed rezoning because it significantly reduces walkability throughout the city. While I originally opposed the current rezoning due to our own neighborhood's reduced walkability, that is because our commute would change from 0.5 miles walking to a 3.4 mile bus ride, my opposition has crystallized upon learning some additional information, mainly three things. One, Charlottesville residents who do not currently have students attending Charlottesville City Schools were not informed in writing by Charlottesville City Schools that the rezoning is taking place, to my knowledge. While I appreciate the efforts made to hold meetings at some schools and virtually, only families of current students and those who follow local news closely were made aware of the rezoning. Since the rezoning will ostensibly last several years, if not decades, it behooves CCS to approach the city as a whole when planning. Two, Kindlewood's neighborhood is located 0.5 miles from their local school, Summit Elementary School, as well. And it will also be moved to an unwalkable school, that is Burnley Moran Elementary School. while I am personally thrilled that BME could be expanding its socioeconomic, racial, and linguistic diversity, that is if we were allowed to continue attending BME, that would be wonderful to be there to support that. However, it is counterproductive and unconscionable to uproot Kindlewood from its local school and bus them away in an effort to serve them better. Kindlewood's residents are less likely to own a car and have community or family supports to offset the challenges of living outside of walking distance from their school. And I should note that of the 150 families approximately that are represented in Kindlewood, about 70 of them do not speak English as their first language. 3, feedback from the residents affiliated with Summit Elementary in last fall's feedback survey registered quite low compared to its current student population. About 22% of the total number of students had a respondent on their behalf. That's much lower than BME's 55% response rate compared to its student population. I don't know of other data that CCS is taking into consideration by way of feedback, but it behooves the CCS school board to involve Kindlewood much more before pulling the trigger on this decision. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Brown. I live at 828 St. Clair Avenue. Both my children will go to BME next year. First, I want to say thanks for the endeavor to evaluate this ahead of when it's needed. This planning is really important, so I want to say thank you. One question, I'm assuming that we won't receive answers now, but one question that I do have is, was the walkable zones factored into the decision-making process? I totally understand the need and the desire and the importance of levelizing socioeconomic outcomes across the schools. Totally get that, and I'm in support of that. It doesn't seem like the current recommendation took into the walkable zones, aka BME's current walkable zone was cut in half, and a chunk of Summit's walkable zone was also cut off. My question, to the board and staff and the consultant is, can those SES metrics still be hit while maintaining the walkable zones? I think the data shows that communities are strong when they're together, right? So walking to school, meeting the neighbors, right? That's oftentimes where people meet each other for the first time, and that's really important. A couple of stats here. Option 4, which the respondents to the survey clearly was overwhelmingly the number one chosen option versus the current recommended plan. The current recommended plan would relocate 21.1% more students versus option 4. The current recommended plan would move 150 kids from Summit. That's half of the current enrolled school base there. 709 kids would be walkable in option 4 versus 667 in the current recommended plan. There'd be a 6.3% improvement with option 4. I understand that we need to think about all of the different metrics. My request to all those who are considering the option is, can we maintain the walkable zones while still hitting the socioeconomic and other metric factors? So thank you.
Hi, my name is Rashard Dacus. I live at 950 Locust Avenue. I have a lot to say, but what I will say is that our kids go to Charlottesville Day School currently. We have a 6- and a 4-year-old. But the reason that I wanted us to go to Burnham Moran, one of the largest reasons, is because I wanted my kids to go to school with their neighbors. We currently go to school where the kids come from everywhere, and the idea that we will again possibly have the option of, or the opportunity, not the opportunity, lack of opportunity to do that, I think concerns me in that way, and that my whole goal of going to public school is that they would be in school with their neighbors and be close and walkable to the house. The other things, I'm from Montgomery, Alabama, so I'm from an area where segregation was strong, and so I've seen kind of firsthand or secondhand when you take people from a neighborhood and move them to another, how that affects them, and it has not really panned out to be the thing that I think makes the most sense because the resources are still removed from that neighborhood. They're not kind of still in that neighborhood. And so I'm just curious as to whether or not the thought of reallocating funds to better support the schools that need them, as opposed to taking kids and moving them to another school, presuming that they're going to get the things that they don't have in their current place, and what that does to affect those kids who now go from a place where they may see comfort with people who are more like them to a place when they're not. So that's my thoughts.
Hello. My name is Holly Barton Kiesling. I live at 625 Hinton Avenue in between Avon and Kindlewood. My son is a third grader at Summit and I have a fifth grader at Walker who attended Summit. I'm a co-chair of the PTO, but I'm speaking on my own behalf today. I support Royal Gurley's recommendation for the new upcoming zoning. Our primary responsibility is to make the decision that is best for all the kids in our community, to provide them with love, support, and the best possible education. The current proposal does the best job of that, as it best equalizes low SES across the city. All other recommendations left Summit with a low SES of close to 80%, way higher than anywhere else, with other schools as low as 34%. Why does this matter? Low SES reflects income, education levels, and current employment. It does not mean poor. It reflects having fewer advantages, having parents who value education but may not have had good educational experiences. It reflects families who may have less time because they're working more, because their jobs don't pay well. It reflects families who are new immigrants who are navigating things we can't even imagine. It does not reflect families who don't love their kids and want what is best for them. The reality is that low SES families are very diverse in terms of need, but many do need more support. Concentrating all those kids in one school is harmful to everyone. As an aside, I graduated from Nelson County High School in 1995 with a family income of $30,000. I didn't have running water until I was 7. The house I lived in still has plywood floors. I went to college where they were looking for lower income kids from rural areas, and I was pretty good at basketball, and they wanted my perspective. That is to say that Burnley Moran is lucky to have the kids from Kindlewood. It will enrich the school, and I don't want people to forget that. And like all parents of kids who attend BME, Greenbrier, Jackson Via, Johnson, or Trailblazers, I love my kids' school. I love Summit. I love going to morning meetings and looking out at the very diverse student body of Hispanic kids, Black students, Muslim students, and white students. What is a better way for our kids to grow up? I love the fact that I know many of these kids from playing in the old big field down at Kindlewood, and I'm truly sad that in 5 years, the elementary school age kids on my street won't be classmates with the kids from Kindlewood. In an ideal world, I wish that Kindlewood could stay at Summit, but I came to the same conclusion as Dr. Gurley. It is not in the best interest of all the kids. My older son spent all elementary school at Summit. He's now in 5th grade at Walker. He had 4 principals, and there are only 2 of his teachers remaining from his 5 years there. While Summit creates a wonderful, nurturing environment for the kids, it is a harder place to teach than other schools across the district. Thank you to the committee for all the hard work in thinking about this rezoning plan. There are many small details in this plan that I really appreciate, particularly that there may be opportunities for families at Kindlewood with long ties to Summit who could possibly stay. If it has taught me anything, is that we need to consider infrastructure in schools and all of our future development plans. A school board member needs to be on the planning commission. Lastly, my son was also zoned to move to Burnley Moran in one of the scenarios. I told him that if that happened, he would have more friends in middle school and he would get to ride the bus. He obviously wanted to stay at Summit, but he was open to moving. These changes will give us all new opportunities. Perhaps having a bus will make it easier to get to school. Charlottesville is only 10 miles by 10 miles. We'll never be very far from each other. The most important thing is for us to continue working together as a community to support public education. It is the most powerful thing that we do together as a society. It opens our doors for us to meet people who are different than we are, and that's beautiful. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Connor Welch. I live at 1025 Locust Avenue. And I have a daughter who attends kindergarten at Burnley Moran and a son who may one day as well. I'd like to thank the committee for having and hosting this feedback session. Like others, I feel strongly about this. And I have a few objections, as you can imagine. I'm here to voice them. I think that the balance has not been stricken, a proper balance for walkability, along with the really important goals of better diversity in terms of socioeconomic status. And I think that walkability zone, it should be sacred. It's something that's really logical and makes sense if you live a quarter of a mile from an elementary school, that your child would walk there, would go there, would bike there. My daughter bikes to school. She walks to school some mornings when we have a little more time. And I think that's really important. And that's lost when she's going on a bus 3 miles to Greenbrier. I think that there's also an opportunity. It was sort of a strange thing when the email came through last January that the recommended plan wasn't one of the 4 that we voted for. I say voted for offered our feedback about, and everyone submitted. And so I would ask the committee, what was our feedback for, and how was it incorporated into the final plan? There's a like kind of a dark, sort of like unclear element. Is like this feedback was sought, solicited, and it's kind of overwhelmingly in favor of one of the proposals. And then what came out was actually none of the proposals, sort of this unique one. But again, I do appreciate that you're hosting these feedback sessions. I think, like someone mentioned earlier, I don't think there was enough notice about it. I know you had a few sessions maybe at the end of October, but that was before there was anything to look at meaningfully, or that I knew of. There were no proposals at that time. So I think that there's a better balance to strike on the walkability. And I think it kind of defies logic that you could be a quarter mile from an elementary school and not attend that elementary school. And Burnley Moran is uniquely cleaved in half by this 250. And I think that's, a great mistake. Thanks for your time.
Hello, I'm Aaron Feldman. I live on River Vista Avenue, just on the other side of Long Street from Burnley Moran and around the corner from St. Clair. My kids are grown now, they're 20 and 23. But when they were young, I took great pleasure in walking them to and from school, Burnley Moran. And it was helped to create the part of the community of go there and play on the playground after school and walk home. And it saddens me that other families might not have the opportunity to participate in their neighborhood school like this, like my family enjoyed. And so I've just come to add my voice to the others who want their kids to go to their neighborhood school.
Good evening, school board. My name is Jeanette Scott, and I live at 1209 St. George Avenue. I live in the Locust Grove neighborhood, and I'm a parent to a current Burnley Moran student and a future Burnley Moran student. With the proposed rezoning plan, our home would be rezoned to Greenbrier Elementary School. Anyone who is out and about in our neighborhood at 7:30 a.m. will see the groups of joyful families and children as they walk to school. Walking to Burnley Moran has become part of the culture of our neighborhood. It would be an immense loss to our community to negatively impact the ability of students to walk to school. Not only is walking to school convenient for many families, studies have shown there are many benefits as well. Walking can improve students' attention span, physical health, and lower stress. As a teacher myself, I understand the issues affecting Summit Elementary School and the desire to balance socioeconomic status amongst the schools. However, I found it alarming that there were only 67 responses affiliated with Summit Elementary School on the fall survey, compared to BME's 161 responses. I do not feel confident that the voices of the families currently zoned to Summit were heard, especially the families in Kindlewood, some of whom face language barriers. I would not want to assume what the families of Kindlewood want, but there has to be some value in their ability to walk to school as well. Picking up a sick child, attending family events, and volunteering at school are some areas in which proximity to a school building could be important to families. When I first heard of the rezoning plans, I wrongly assumed that we would not be affected because we're in the walking zone of BME. After the first round of survey results were shared, I felt relieved to see that most people preferred option 4, which would keep us at BME. And most people disliked option 1, which had the biggest shift of students. However, that relief was short-lived as the proposed rezoning plan was announced last month. Rezoning Charlottesville schools will have a long-lasting impact, and I would encourage spending more time thinking through other options that could allow for more diverse socioeconomic status in the schools across the city, as well as maintain better walkability and less impact on students. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Brad Connors. My family lives at 1201 Bellevue, which is in the Locust Grove neighborhood, which you've heard a lot from this evening. I have a 9-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old. This decision would impact our 3-year-old. Is this a conversational or are you just listening? Okay. I echo everyone in our neighborhood, what are sharing about the walkability. Two possibly different thoughts. One, I believe from the communication, it felt like the highest area of need may have shifted in December in the middle of this process, or one floated to the top. It was presented to us that there were 5 or 6 main concerns or bullet points that we were trying to capture with the rezoning, and then one floated to the top, and that was the socioeconomic distribution within the city. So if that were the case, which I believe it to be true, then I think the 4 options that were given to the community should be void, and we start the process again if one initiative truly became the most important. So that's the one thing I wanted to share. And then the second thing that I wanted to share is that there is this a growing feeling of distrust between the board and the community. And this is another example in that. And I'll share some from the past, and this is a small example of renaming of the schools. 2 years ago, we went through this huge process, a community event of coming up with a school name. And then at the end of that process, we selected a name and the board squashed it and said, nope, we're not going to do that. And then round 2, another process of choosing a name for the school. Of those 4 options, then after round 2, the board says, nope, we're not going to do that. And now our name is Sunrise Elementary, which is a beautiful name, but the process to get to that name felt like a huge disconnect between the board and the community, asking for our input and then completely disregarding it. And that feels like that exact scenario is happening here, but with much bigger impact on our families and communities. So I just wanted to share that is a growing sentiment in our community of this massive disconnect in leadership, asking for input and response and surveys, and then it really feels like just total disregard for input. I mean, the data suggests across the city surveys the biggest amount of support for option number 4, and that was not the option that was moving forward from your end. So I just wanted to share a huge disconnect in the processes that we have been involved in the last few years. Thank you.
Hi there. Again, appreciate you taking the feedback from the community tonight. My name is Corey Eicher. I'm a resident of the northeastern Charlottesville neighborhood, Locust Grove. I had 2 children attend Burnley Moran, and currently one in the school system. I've sent a lot of my personal thoughts already directly through the feedback channels. It would really, I'd like to use the opportunity to talk to the room to let people here know that you should probably spread the word. There are other people that I think we've heard already that haven't spoken yet. So I think there's more voices in the community across the city that be interested to hear their feedback. There's a few data points I think that are interesting citywide from the consultant at the question and answer session, the previous session on this topic. The statistic was the walkability, excuse me, across the city was reduced from 42% to 36%. So that's an across the city metric that measures one of the criteria or goals of the rezoning. And yeah, I'd like to echo, I think, some of the suggestions to take a look at this topic of rezoning, take a look at the goals and prioritization of the goals, keeping the priorities, keeping the weighting, which topics are important for the community, but bringing forward more measurables on some of the goals for which we haven't really received a lot of measurable data yet. So we have the metrics on SES, metrics on walkability. I gave you one for the city, which came from the consultant. For the neighborhood, for the school, my measure was something between 800 and 900 addresses that are going to be sliced from Burnley Moran zone and redistrict to Greenbrier. So that's a data point. Those data points can be measured across the city. The impact can be measured. That can be a measurable quantitative data point that can be used together with some of the other goals that you have of community, neighborhood cohesion, transportation, logistics, diversity, and inclusion. All of those metrics, I think, could be balanced better. My personal opinion is that there's more work to do here. And that's my request, is that we consider the impact of this and take more time to make the best decision. Thank you.
If there's anybody on the Zoom call who wishes to make public comment, you can use the raise hand feature and we'll promote you one at a time for a 3-minute speaking period. And just give us some patience as we try to pipe that sound through so that the board members can hear it.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you and we'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Cuomo. My name is Ariel Bruner. I live at 293 Tennis Drive in Charlottesville. I am a third grade teacher at Summit Elementary. And I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I feel kind of compelled to do so because I understand a lot of the community members that have spoken and their thoughts of kind of not feeling like every voice has been heard, which I agree is true. Um, However, I think that I also want to say to Dr. Gurley and to the board that I appreciate the fact that one of the leading principles guiding you in deciding which particular rezoning to follow is looking at more equitable socioeconomic status. Being a teacher in Summit, I see how we have the highest students that are disadvantaged, and more housing units can create even more of that population. And I see how we have had several teachers who are not able to stay in Summit because it is a very challenging school to work in because of the amount of students that we have that are disadvantaged. I think something that we need to remember is the privilege that we have, and the privilege that a lot of the community members that have spoken have, as well as my own, and understand that walkability should not be the leading cause going and playing at a playground, which all of the Charlottesville school playgrounds are considered public access after a certain time. So regardless of what school you're zoned to, you can play at any of them. I don't think that should be the number one priority when we're thinking about what is going to keep our teachers in the buildings, what is going to best serve every single one of our students academically, emotionally, and socially, rather than thinking of just walkability. From what I'm hearing, a lot of people are saying they agree with inclusion, they support those things and diversity. However, walkability is something that should be a non-negotiable. And to me, when we're thinking about our children and we're thinking about educating them and getting them the services and the best services that they need, and also retaining teachers, especially in these buildings that do have higher populations of disadvantaged students, we need to take into consideration spreading them out. And I just appreciate Dr. Gurley and the board for making that a priority. Thank you for your time.
Are you able to hear us? I see a last name of Sturgill. You're unable to unmute at this time and give your public comment for 3 minutes.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, board, for taking the time to listen to us today. My name is Beatty Sturgill, and I'm a resident on River Vista Ave in Locust Grove neighborhood. Currently have a first grader enrolled at BME, as well as a future kindergartner. We can literally see BME from our street and are obviously respectfully requesting that the school board reconsider the decision to rezone our neighborhood to Greenbrier. One important fact I think I'd like to point out is we're using this term walkability, but it's really a sense of community that we have built over the years of having our walking bus go to school. Kids have gotten to know each other. Low socioeconomic kids have gotten to play with, different diversity kids. And it's really built a sense of community that is going to be missed if we have to drive and bus our kids. We're daily walkers to and from BME, and I cannot stress enough how walking has given our family that, again, that sense of community, how much my partner and I have become involved in the PTO because of the sense of community we're getting being so close to our school. Instead of sitting in car distracted by traffic, we're able to talk to the day with our first grader. We hear what she's learned, what fun things have happened, or even what she's struggled with. We talk about the silly things, difficult things, and everything in between. We've walked with neighborhood families, building bonds and relationships. We volunteer for those PTO events that we wouldn't really know otherwise, but from word of mouth on these walks that we get in. But again, I really want to stress when I'm using that term walkability, I'm really talking about community and building those not only bonds within our family, but within our neighborhood as well. And I respectfully ask that the decision be reconsidered. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do one more round. If there is anybody that is on the attendees list in the Zoom webinar, there is a raise hand button. If you'd like to use that, will allow you to have permission to speak up on the stage here for up to 3 minutes. Okay, I see a user with the last name Davis. I'm promoting your role. You should be able to unmute and provide your public comment. Just let us know that you can hear us.
Hi, my name's Colleen Davis. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great. I live at 909 St. Clair Ave in the Locust Grove neighborhood. I can see the Burnley Moran Elementary School from my house. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for hosting this and for giving us the opportunity to provide comments tonight. Appreciate it. I do share some concerns that have already been voiced, specifically around the quick timeline of this planning process, the lack of awareness and communication, and the decreased walkability across the plan, including the Kindlewood and Locust Grove communities. So regarding awareness, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that some neighbors and I have been trying to raise awareness in several communities that are really impacted by this proposal. And we are finding very low awareness, and that is a big concern to us. I know I won't get this answer tonight, but I would definitely like to know more about outreach, any that has been done specifically at Kindlewood. It seems that awareness is very low there, and I would definitely like to feel confident that your plan incorporates their very valuable feedback. Regarding the Locust Grove community, I have reviewed all of the information you've provided. I have read through your FAQs and all the arguments about why Locust Grove needs to go to Greenbrier. And the main issue I have with this is that it completely sacrifices walkability for the goal of the balancing socioeconomic diversity across the schools. And I agree that that's important, but I don't think they need to be mutually exclusive. I think both can be achieved with a few small changes to your plan. And I would really like to see you all consider ideas that some of us have that would help achieve that. Finally, my comments about the timeline. I believe that it seems pretty rushed, especially considering the current proposal isn't even one of the 4 that was originally circulated, and considering the new priority that was announced well into the process about the rebalancing of socioeconomic diversity across the schools. So I want to be clear that I absolutely recognize this is a huge undertaking and a large amount of work has already been done. But I think that since your plan results in some really large changes to our entire community, I think that alone is deserving of sufficient time and attention to get this right. I don't think that a few more months in the planning process will have any significant impact on your timeline. And I truly believe that with some small changes, it's possible to implement a plan that achieves the school board's objectives, keeps your plan largely intact, but also addresses a lot of the concerns that we've heard tonight, also including walkability. So I am respectfully asking that you delay the March vote on the current plan and consider a few adjustments to the plan, and also gather and incorporate more community feedback. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and I look forward to working with you on this process.
Okay, is there anybody else in the attendees gallery on the Zoom webinar who wishes to provide up to 3 minutes of public comment? Just simply need to raise your hand using the tool found on your computer or phone. Okay, I see a hand raised. Last name is Anderson. Be promoting you to speak. Please state your name and address for the board, and you will have 3 minutes for a public comment.
My name is Aisha Anderson. I live at 2334 Rolling Road S in Scottsville, Virginia. I am the secretary at Summit Elementary School. Did you hear me, Mr. Cuomo?
Yes, yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
I am speaking up solely on behalf of myself and some of the community members that I have heard back from. I heard some of the things that have been stated tonight. So, and the walkability is the one that sticks out the most for me because of there are different things that come into play with the walkability, like attendance and being accreditation, all of those things. And when kids are out sick because they're walking in 28-degree weather or below, even though they have the proper gear and we make sure that they have what they need, they're still getting sick. They're still missing school. Some of the things that Ariel pointed out, Ariel Bruner, is that it is to hold and withhold teachers in the building. It is draining at some point to a lot of us. Me being here at Clark for 19 years, I've seen a lot happen. I've seen a lot of change within the division. The walkability piece is a big concern for me as I run the walking bus in our zone. We have families that carpool together, and I heard somebody make the statement about a sense of community. Well, I'm sorry, when you look at the walking bus and you see the students that are on our walking bus, they are our Black and brown students. Half of the parents are single parents, don't have cars, don't have things. So it's not equitable or feasible for some to be able to do certain things if some of our kids, are housed over to Burley Moran. Um, it's just a lot. I think I had a parent reach out to me just a few minutes ago. Last minute information that was put on her doorstep at Kindlewood. She wasn't aware that there was a bus where they could be bussed over there to be able to speak to the board tonight. So I just think the lack of information that is getting out. I heard one parent say, "You want our feedback," but then it's like it's in a sense brushed under the rug. I hear that a lot from a lot of parents. So maybe the way we're choosing to reach out to families to get information or to get feedback, maybe we need to do something different. I know we've had meetings in the communities at the school, and it seems like as it's getting closer, I'm hearing more voices speak up, and I'm trying to encourage people to speak to the board, to email the board, to get answers that they need. So with all that being taken into consideration, I mean, I know the change is going to happen regardless whether we give our feedback or not, but have been some very good points made, but I wanted to speak on behalf of my school alone.
Okay, I guess we'll do one more round of attendees who may be listening on the Zoom webinar. If there's a public comment you wish to make, please use the tool on your device to raise your hand so that we can promote you to the panel and give you 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes for your public comment. Okay, at this time, I'm not seeing any attendees in the Zoom webinar with a hand raised. Yeah. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to give public comment at this time?
Hi, my name is Myrtle Houchins. So I didn't come to speak. I came to listen. I do come to stand for Kinderwood families because that's who I deal with every day. Though they are just getting into the process, believe ye me, these are families that care about their children. They care, and they want you to care also. So even though they're just getting there, I'm committing myself to working with them, to let them know, to educate them. One word alone, rezoning and zoning. Terminology that most of you all might know, but they may not understand. So I want you to know that from our perspective, community-wise, we're willing to work with you all if you are willing to work with us. And just know that they will be well represented. Thank you all.
All right, at this time, we will, the board is going to take a 10-minute break. We will, all those who want to stay absolutely can stay, and then the board will resume taking public comment at 6:05.
Oh, I need to see that. Yeah. Thank you. Power sword. I can't think of the word. I mean, even Richmond is, it's fluctuating with what the expectation is.
How are you? How's Esther? I saw her in the library. She told me that she works there now. I saw that. I saw a little bit of Facebook.
One or two. Did you see the new one?
I did not know. One of them passed away, right?
All right. We are now going to resume. I do want to thank everyone who came forward during our first hour to provide comments to the board. Please know that we are capturing your comments and concerns, and we do anticipate that we will be providing additional feedback to you all. At this point, we will allow for comments from the audience again, as well as anyone in the Zoom room.
Hi, my name is Allie Sturgill, and I'm a resident on River Vista Avenue in the Locust Grove neighborhood. I currently have a first grader enrolled at BME and a future kindergartner. We can see BME from our street. In fact, I can see it from my yard. I'm respectfully asking that the school reconsider the decision to rezone the Greenbrier, our neighborhood to the Greenbrier School. We're daily walkers to and from BME, and I can't stress enough how walking to and from has given our family a sense of community and how much it has gotten my partner and I involved in the PTO. Instead of sitting in a car distracted by traffic, we're able to talk about the day with our first grader and other children. And we're involved in the walking bus. The relationships, sense of community, and pride for one school will be lost with the proposed rezoning. The rezoning is illogical for Locust Grove. We're fully on board with the values that have been stated as part of this rezoning, but it's just not quite logical. And I encourage you guys to think about a way that we can make these changes, align with those goals, but protect community, because that's what will be lost. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Eduardo. I live in Coleman Street, B 912B. Why do they want to move Burley Moran people? Because for me, Burley Moran is the closest school. Because when I walk to school, I can talk to my friends and other people. Thank you for letting me talking. Let me walk to school.
We'll just give the same reminder for the attendees on Zoom. If you do wish to provide a public comment for up to 3 minutes at any point during this meeting, just simply raise your hand and we will make sure that you have that opportunity. Again, you just simply need to raise your hand in the attendee gallery and that will signify to me that you'd like to make public comments. Thank you.
So on behalf of the board, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to give comments to us. We are committed to being here until 7. That's what we've advertised. So we will be here for the next 15 minutes. Anybody in person or on Zoom who decides to pop in.
Hi, I'm Lauren Whittington. I live in Locust Grove. I have a first grader and a future kindergartner. Trust has already been mentioned, so I'd like to build on that. At first, you outlined 5 priorities for rezoning, but when decisions were made, 4 of those priorities were abandoned in favor of just 1, socioeconomic balancing. And when we ask why, we can't get a clear answer that makes sense. We need transparency. Why is socioeconomic balancing so important to the school board that you're willing to override overwhelming community opposition? Lack of diversity in and of itself is not inherently a problem. So what is it? So what is the problem you're trying to solve? It feels like you have another agenda entirely. This isn't about overcrowding, is it? Without transparency, we're left to do our own research and draw our own conclusions. So here's what I found. According to Virginia.gov, Summit's reading pass rate is 51% and its math pass rate is 49%. That tells me that these students need more help and more resources. Considering 21% of Summit's students speak English as a second language, it's not surprising that they may require additional support. But wouldn't it be so easy to just move 150 of those struggling students to the highest performing school in the district? The numbers would just balance themselves out. Instant improvement. Kindlewood is a community where many families rely on walking and public transportation. You want to move those students farther from their homes, making it harder for parents to stay involved in their children's education. The school board should be removing barriers for these families, not adding new ones. Without transparency, the only conclusion that I can draw is that the board is prioritizing appearances over actual solutions. By shifting students around, you can make district-wide test scores look better without having to address the root issues affecting student achievement. Instead of making real improvements where they're needed, you're making a decision that disproportionately harms the very families you claim to be helping. You say you want equity, yet you're making life harder for the families who struggle the most. You say you care about students, but you're using them as pawns in a numbers game. At first, I got involved in this fight because I wanted what was best for my kids. But the more I looked into it, the more I saw an underprivileged community being taken advantage of, being used as a political prop. If the goal is true educational equity, we should focus on strengthening the schools that need support rather than uprooting hundreds of children. There are many ways to balance enrollment without sacrificing the walkability we value. Thank you.
My name is Emily Harding. We live at Elliott Avenue in the Summit District. I have a 3rd grader and a kindergartner. Was not planning on speaking tonight because I didn't think I'd make it, so I have nothing prepared. I am a member of one of a 5-person PTO. 3 of us which handle just about everything. My husband is one of those members. We very much value walkability. We live in Belmont because how much we value being able to walk. My husband, every night is the best part of his day, was riding his bike with my kids to school. We know the importance of that. The teachers are overwhelmed. Our PTO does not have the funds or the bandwidth to support the teachers as they need. The kids are wonderful. The kids do their best and the teachers do their best, but with very limited resources. You have a large population of children that need more support, and they do what they can, and our teachers do what they can. But given the resources that we have and are provided by the city, we understand that we are given more as a Title I school. But what the children need is a more diverse population with parents that can have more resources to help support. We are sometimes, we bring snacks to school every week because there are kids who don't have enough food. And I understand walkability's importance, but you're talking about children who need more support, and we do what we can. But the teachers are overwhelmed with what they manage, and we want a more equitable for everyone. Again, I had nothing prepared, but this is not a game. We're just trying to balance the system to give everybody what they need to succeed. We want all of these children to succeed at Walker and Buford or whatever they're going to be. And I support the proposal. So thank you.
I do see somebody in the attendees gallery. I will promote you momentarily to have your 3-minute period of time to speak. Just bear with me as I head back to the computer.
Hi, this is Catherine Gray. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks. Sorry I couldn't make it in person tonight. I am a teacher at Summit, one of the English language development teachers, and I also have my own children attending Summit and Walker. I also was planning on just listening tonight, but want to add my voice to those in support of this proposal. It is not an easy choice. Either way, no matter what the decisions are, we lose students and families to prevent overcrowding, not for a numbers game, but because we will be unsustainable within a few years. I don't want to say goodbye to anyone that I work with or that my own children go to school with. I don't want them to lose potential classmates. I recognize all of the hard work and thought and care that the team and the committees have put into rezoning. I know no decision can make everyone happy because we have to lose walkability because of Summit's situation and the historical decisions that have been made by the city that led us to where we are today. So I appreciate everyone's hard work and hope that that we can move forward and help make Summit and the whole city's future more sustainable. Thank you.
My name is Neil Davis. I don't really have any students at either one of the schools or any of the schools that we're talking about right now. I've got a granddaughter who's currently at Burnley Moran. What I do have is a kind of unique perspective because growing up in Charlottesville, I grew up in Belmont, which meant I went to Clark for part of my my growth through elementary school. We moved over to Locust Avenue, just on the other side of the bridge where the cutoff is for this solution, and spent time at Burnley Moran. And my daughter, who you heard from already, and my son went to Greenbrier. So I've kind of got a unique perspective on all three of the pieces of the solution here. I think what I've heard tonight is a lot of different reasons for things like socioeconomic, and we're talking about being able to walk to school. But I don't think you're solving the real problem with the solution here, because this problem has been here for over 40 years. I think the problem that needs to be solved is aligning the city government with city school systems to get the proper funding, the proper resources to help address the learning issues that exist over what I refer to still lovingly as Clark, and now Summit, rather than moving students around all over the place, because it's the same problem that existed 40 years ago. The city dynamics have not really changed that much in terms of the neighborhoods and their makeups. It's been this way forever. So I think the real problem is we've got solutions that just move the problem around. You're going to pick students up out of one school, move them over to the other school, which now balances both schools from a performance standpoint, but it doesn't solve the problem, because if there are learning challenges currently over at Clark, they're going to just get picked up and moved over to Burnley Moran. If there are not adequate resources put in place to help with the learning environment. And I think that's really the problem. It feels like there's more discussion that needs to be had, and that maybe you guys need to go back to the city council and fight for the resources that are needed here, rather than moving students around and inconveniencing a whole bunch of people and families and things like that. So anyway, thanks.
I don't know if this is allowed, but since nobody else is getting up, we're all here. Forgetting the equitable part. The city, they should have become aligned with the school board when they made the decision to increase the housing in Belmont. But they didn't, right? And so they have tripled, if not more, the density of our housing in Belmont. And so moving students, while nobody wants to move, Kendall Wood doesn't want to move, the Locust Grove families don't want to move, and everybody understands that. But space-wise, I remember sitting on a PTO citywide meeting 3 years ago and then pointing out that Summit was the only school in the city that had no room for expansion. We don't have the ground space to put trailers out. So keeping everybody at Summit that is planned to be in our neighborhood within the next 5 years is not physically possible. I wish they hadn't done it that way. I wish they had planned better and not just kicked the can down the road and made it our problem, but that's not what happened. So there has to be lines redrawn somehow to make physical bodies fit in the schools. And Summit is the one that does not have capacity because of our land, how we are locked in land-wise to expand. I got here late, so I don't know if that's been brought up, but that's just the math of it. I will say, I think the walking bus is one of the best things that came out of COVID. It brought tears to my eyes on day one when Dr. Gurley was walking those kids to school. I love it. I will say when we walk and bike our kids to school every day, the majority of Kindlewood families do not walk their children to school. They mostly drop off in cars. So I think now that we've got our buses up and running and making sure they do have access to public transportation is important. I'm a huge bike advocate. I think making bike lanes from Summit to Burley Moran and improving the safety of that. I take that bridge every day. There's other ways. I would be willing to work on that. But as a walker biker, we don't see a huge group of Kindlewood walking and using that opportunity. But I think the math of it is important to remember that somehow these lines have to be redrawn.
I'll just give the figure. If we don't redraw the lines, Summit goes to at least 140% of its capacity.
Ms. Bruner, I see your hand raised. Promote you back to the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Cuomo. I didn't know if I was allowed to do this, but then I saw one of our PTO moms kind of get up there and speak again. And so I felt a little bit more courage to kind of speak again. Speaking to the community members that have made comments about looking at what resources need to go into Summit. I know that Dr. Gurley and anyone on the school board, anyone that works in Summit can tell you that we are being provided with as many resources as we are allowed to have. However, I think something that we need to realize is when you have the most out of any other school's population disadvantaged, regardless of how many resources you put in that building, you're going to struggle. And I think something that we also need to be thinking about is we have so many students that need more resources. And when people are saying put more resources into Summit, in the last 7 years, there has not been one internal transfer in the Charlottesville City School District to come to Summit because the teachers, the specialists, they don't want to come to our school because it's a hard school. And that is no diss to any of our family members or anything. We are all trying our best. However, that would then provide the opportunity for more teachers and more specialists to see more diverse students. We've lost several of our teachers who are some of the best educators that I've ever seen in my building and just in general transfer to other schools in the city because they're easier on them, because it's not so emotionally draining going to work and having only 2 or 3 of your students come in that are disadvantaged versus in my classroom, over 60% of mine are. And so when we're talking about putting more resources into a building, I think yes, 100%, but that's not something that the district has not tried to do. We continue to get first year people coming into our buildings because that's all that will come into Summit, because Summit has a stereotype, which is terrible and awful that needs to be battled. But I think telling Dr. Gurley and the school board that they just need to put in more resources, and that's the problem. It's not like they're not trying, but I'm going to say it again. In the last 7 years, there has not been one internal transfer to come to Summit. And there have been multiple year after year to leave Summit because it is so draining on our teachers. If you spread that demographic out more, you will not have these teachers leaving from school to school and saying, I'm not going to teach in that school because that's the hard school. Everyone will get what they need. Thank you. And again, Dr. Gurley and the school board, I appreciate you guys considering this.
Hello again. I apologize for taking up more of your time. Again, Elizabeth Hand. I just wanted to make the comment that while the plan proposed may be the best solution, looking at rezoning from an SES perspective, that would, if that's the conclusion, that's the way it will be. And I know that the families who get changed schools will receive the services that they need at their new schools. That being said, I would like to ask for you to observe the room and notice that there don't seem to be many people here who have spoken from the Kindlewood neighborhood itself. And that to me gives me pause and some concern that perhaps they are not being included in this decision-making process as they ought to be. If they were, and if they had the ability to have meetings on site with interpreters and the opportunity to voice their priorities and their concerns, and if the same plan were created after those sessions and their feedback, then I would say, well, shoot, now we're not going to walk to school, but it's a sacrifice that we're going to make because that's what the community has decided together. I don't believe that that's where we're at in this, however. And I, at the risk of sharing information that is probably not public yet, there are some questionnaires circulating in Kindlewood about their awareness of the rezoning plans. Not all 150 families have responded yet, obviously. And this needs to be done in partnership with interpreters. So it's a slowish process, but about 30 families have responded already, who the results are overwhelmingly that people are unaware of the proposed rezoning against the neighborhood being moved. And they say walkability is a priority. And so I don't know, as a citizen, as a resident of Charlottesville, I don't really know what to make of this other than that the absence of their voice in this type of setting is concerning to me. And if nothing else, a delay in the decision-making process in order to incorporate more of their feedback would be the right thing to do. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's Connor Welch again. Since everyone else is doing it, I figured I'd speak again. That's okay. You've heard from a lot of people in Locust Grove, and I was thinking about why that might be. There's surely various explanations or reasons for that. I mean, one, there's definitely privilege there that we have the time or the resources, the availability to be here. There's also awareness. There's been like a lot of awareness being raised, which credit one of my neighbors, I'm not sure who, but dropped off leaflets trying to just raise awareness, which I'm appreciative of. But I think there's another one here is that, this is just a really confounding decision. When the first word reached my eyes around this was like sometime in October. I don't think there was anything proposed yet. I don't know if there were any of the four to debate, the four options, but this is the only walking zone that is really decimated. And again, we live a quarter of a mile from their local elementary school, have this unique opportunity. And it's really special opportunity to have a daily ritual with your child, to walk and to kind of unpack the day and what they're anticipating or what they went through at the end of the day. And I strongly believe that there's a way to balance these, to thread this needle, and to achieve the socioeconomic objectives, to ensure that Summit isn't uniquely disadvantaged in any way and overcrowded in any way, while also preserving what I view as pretty essential and sacred and logical, which is keeping a community that can walk really closely and be at school in 5-10 minutes together. And so I really hope that you take this feedback. As I aired earlier, it's unclear. I know you're accepting a lot of feedback, but it's unclear where it's going or how it's factoring in into your process. But I do hope you consider that. Thank you.
I do see somebody in the attendee gallery. Last name is Connors. You've been promoted to the panelist position, so you can unmute and you have 3 minutes for public comment. And just please state your name and address so that we can make note of you. Thank you. Is the person with the last name Connors, if you could unmute yourself if you wish to make public comment. All right, we'll try one more time. If the person who would like to give public comment, Connors, you are promoted as panelist. Your hand is raised, and all you need to do is unmute your microphone, and we can hear your public comments at this time. All right, well, if you change your mind, you can raise your hand again, and yeah, I've switched the microphone so that you should be able to hear me. I'm seeing that it's coming through loud and clear on the audio here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes. Sorry about that. My name is Kara Connors. I live at 1201 Bellevue Ave. I've been listening in, and one of the things I wanted to just add is it started to feel a little bit like a Summit versus BME argument. And in my opinion, it isn't Summit versus BME, it's Summit and BME. I don't think, anyone from BME or our Locust Grove neighborhood is arguing against utilization or the diversity goals. We're arguing for the board to spend some more time looking at new options. Now that we know that diversity is the top priority, I think there should be some time spent finding for new options so that we can then get feedback on those options now that we know the new priorities. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason Comfort. I live in Locust Grove. Excuse me? Yeah, Jason Comfort. I live in the Locust Grove neighborhood. And let me start with, I don't think my child's going to be affected by this just based on her grade and the timeline. But I do feel strongly about walkability, as does my whole family. Community attempting to better balance the numbers of students in the schools. The option that's currently recommended was the least popular in the survey. It's also clear from the survey that not all of the communities responded in strong numbers. Maybe awareness has been a part of that issue. In my family, my wife and I are very plugged into the schools. We get all the notifications. We were kind of hearing about this sort of shortly after it started. A lot of other parents don't have that luxury of being able to be that involved in that, sort of plugged in with the schools and knowing what's going on. I think a lot of people don't know that this is going on. I would just ask that you consider delaying the decision to give additional time for awareness and outreach to the communities, to get more input, to create additional alternative options to those that are currently proposed. I know that the rezoning does need to happen. I understand the math. But I think we can come up with additional options besides those that are proposed that might meet more of the rezoning goals, but still maximize walkability more than the current proposal, and not move such a large number of students from just one or two schools. So again, just please consider delaying the decision and consider time for maybe more surveys, more outreach to all the members of the community that this affects, to have a better balance of meeting all these rezoning goals and not just one or two. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Fuller. I live on St. Charles Avenue. I have a kindergartner right now, and an incoming kindergartner probably in 5 years. So it does, I'm sort of a stakeholder in both situations, now and later here. I don't know, to me, walking's critical. I'm not scheduled to be moved, but like just to think someone else is going to get moved is just, it's just horrible. It's one of my best times with my kid, and you see all the neighbors, everybody talks, it's great. A lot of people have gone into that detail, so I don't need to do that more. One thing that kind of jumps out at me a little bit is like the whole the zoning thing. We just had the zoning changes for like the building code and all that kind of stuff. Well, not for the building code, but anyway, we just had like the zoning for residential and changing all that, and it's screaming build, build, build. And I haven't heard anybody say like, okay, we're going to add on to Burnley Moran to build capacity or something like that. Like if the city's building, we need to be building. And I, maybe some people haven't said that, but like, I basically my thoughts like, you add some capacity so that everyone can actually stay where they are, who are walking actually, and then add capacity for more people. And then, then I'm, more interested to see what might happen, So, and my son already has 27 kids in his class, and they've been looking for another kindergarten teacher for the whole year, and they're not going to find it. So it's, there's that whole scalability thing that concerns me. Anyway, well, thank you.
Sorry. This does conclude our feedback session. I do want to close by saying that if no action is taken, Summit will reach 140% of its capacity while Greenbrier remains underutilized. We have held multiple engagement sessions in Kindlewood with interpreters. Our school board members have gone door knocking in the Kindlewood community. This is not about shifting SOL scores. Rather, doing nothing is not an option. With more housing developments on the way, Summit's capacity will be exceeded. As we acknowledge, no solution will be ideal for anyone. The school board members have recorded your questions and your comments this evening. We will provide some follow-up and continue our community engagements. We do appreciate everyone who participated, both in person and online. And this does conclude our session. Have a great evening.